Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be part 3 of me ranking all the prospect pools in the NHL. We're on to get into the good stuff, onto the top half of the league. 16 through 9 will be what we go through today. Let's get right into it with number 16, the Anaheim Ducks. And as I said, these pools at this point, they're all pretty good and they're all pretty interchangeable. You can go down to around 20 from last episode all the way up to around 9. And these pools be very interchangeable, very similar. I can see arguments for any pool in this range being higher or lower. They were very, very close together when ranking them. But we'll jump in with Anaheim. Anaheim, it's a good prospect pool, not quite what you would hope for of a team of this status in the standings. But they have another top pick this year, and they had Cutter Gauthier graduate from prospect status this season, played his full rookie year. He was pretty good. And they have a lot of young pieces on their actual NHL roster, like the likes of Pavel Mintyukov and Olin Zellweger and Leo Carlson and Jackson Lacombe. So a lot of great young pieces already on the roster, which is why their prospect pool takes a bit of a dip. But at the top, you have the third overall pick from last year, Beckett Seneca. He had a better season than I was expecting of him, but still I think a bit of a reach at that spot. I still think he wasn't worth the third overall pick, but he had a pretty good season nonetheless. Big fan of their second first-round pick that year, Stian Solberg, at the second spot here. He's a really good, strong, physical defenseman who's just going to run you over. And I think he's going to blend in so well next to all these offensive-minded D-men that the Ducks have in their system. You have Tristan Luneau, who's dealt with some injuries recently, but has been really good in the AHL and has been really good in his limited NHL games, but he looks really promising. And down the board here, some solid pieces. Lucas Pettersson, Maxime Massé, Ethan Proxinen, and Kerry Terrence, I think could all contribute to the Ducks in the future and play a role in their roster. And then 3 goalies in the top 10 here for the Ducks. Damien Claire had a bit of a down year, kind of bounced around a couple different leagues. He really wasn't able to get a stable situation down for him, and it led to him losing the spot of the starting goalie in Italy for all their international tournaments. So this is going to be a big season for him because if he has a good year, he could be the starter for Italy at the Olympics, which would be a great way to showcase his talent. So really hope he can get that back on track. Thomas Suchanic's an undrafted free agent who had a really good year last year, but was injured for the majority of this season and didn't get to play much. And then Cal Klang is a prospect they acquired from the Penguins who's been solid, but nothing too crazy so far in his career. And we'll see if he ends up making the jump to the NHL at any point here. But yeah, a really solid prospect pool. They're just, I don't have Beckett Seneca rated as highly as he was drafted. So that no top end guy, no top 15 guy is what brings the pool down a bit. Just is what the separator is between some of the pools above them. And yeah. Moving along, we got the Nashville Predators, and this pool also is similar to the Ducks, doesn't quite have that top-end guy, that top-tier guy. The difference I have with this pool is a lot of the guys in that, like in this range, they have a lot of guys in that top 75, a lot of real top 75 prospects, like Matthew Wood, Joakim Kamel, David Edstrom, Tanner Mollendijk, Teddy Steegen, Aiden Fink, and Igor Surin for that matter. They're all very tightly ranked to me and very interchangeable within this ranking and within my overall prospect rankings, but having that many high-quality guys that I believe will be NHL caliber players is super impressive. I mean, Matthew Wood, he's got such a good shot. He's a really good scoring threat from a winger. Same thing with Joakim Kamel, both of whom should be really good scorers at the next level. I really liked watching David Edstrom at the World Juniors this year. I think he's going to be such a good 3C. He could be a 2C. He has the talent for it, I think. But I think his role is going to be a really great two-way center, physical, strong, gets in front of the net, gets in the dirty areas, and he's big. He's 6'3", and so he really is able to do a lot in front of the net and around the dirty areas to create havoc for the other team's defense. And watching him in the juniors, he was so good at that. He was a really good in the dot and plays such a good two-way game. I'm a big fan of David Edstrom, what he showed there. Tanner Mollendijk, a great smooth skating defenseman who was number 1 for the Medicine Hat Tigers, who they acquired him mid-season. They went all the way to the Memorial Cup Finals. He was good for Canada, really good smooth skating two-way defenseman. Teddy Steegen has been really good. He scored the game winner, the tournament winner, golden goal for the U.S. at the World Juniors. He wasn't anything crazy for the majority of the tournament, but that goal, I mean, it's clutch, and that's what you want to see out of a player like that, having that clutch gene. He was solid. He just wasn't one of their elite guys most of the time. Aiden Fink, a big riser over the last year. He was point per game at Penn State last year, This year, 53 points in 40 games at Penn State. A really good season, one of the top players in the NCAA. So he was worth rising up there. Igor Surin, a top player, one of their first-round picks from last year. And, some decent pieces down the board. I like Andrew Gibson's one of the honorable mentions, is pretty solid. He made Team Canada's junior team. Reed Schaefer, who they acquired from Edmonton in the TS Ekholm deal, hasn't quite panned out. And Oasis Weisblatt here is the last honorable mention, who I wanted to mention because he honestly has been he's shown a lot of really impressive stuff at the Memorial Cup and the WHL playoffs over the last month, and he looks really promising. He's a really good leader too. He's a great character guy that I think could be a really good fourth liner potentially down the line. But this pool has got really good depth and has a lot of talent that's in a specific area, but a lot of really solid talent there. And Nashville also has the 5th overall pick this year, plus 2 other firsts. They're loaded up in their prospect pool, and they have a potential to do some really good things. Next up, the Columbus Blue Jackets. This pool it's an interesting pool. I think they've got a lot of similar players in here, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. They've got a lot of these smaller forwards at the top here, like Gavin Brindley and Jordan Dumais, who are waiting to take the jump. Gavin Brindley dropped a little bit for me because he had a really disappointing first AHL season after a really good final season in the NCAA. So hoping to see him bounce back in the next year. Caden Lindstrom at the top, though, is the biggest interesting piece, the most polarizing piece in this prospect pool. Missed almost the entirety of this season due to a back injury that was widely known before the draft, yet the Columbus Blue Jackets still took him. He's super talented. He ended up coming back for the WHL Finals and the Memorial Cup, and he was really good. He played well. If he fully recovers and this back injury doesn't linger, he's going to be an amazing player. But that question mark is going to definitely be lingering in the back of the minds of every Columbus Blue Jackets fan until it's finally over that hump. But I think if injuries don't prove to be a constant problem for Lindstrom, he's going to be a great, beautiful power forward centerman who could play on your top line in the future. And I think they've got a really good pool of young centermen in their system. Down the board, though, Luca Del Bel Blues had a really good season at the AHL level. Charlie Elick's a good shutdown defenseman. They got 2 really solid potential goalies in Evan Gardner and Sergei Ivanov. Both have been playing very well lately in their respective leagues, and they've got some decent pieces here. I like Luca Pinelli a lot, another good character guy. He could be a good fourth line guy in the future. Plays hard, plays physical, not afraid to be gritty or get in people's faces, but has some skill to him too, a little bit of playmaking touch that's really nice. And Luca Morelli, another defenseman there. But this pool is really solid for Columbus, and they also have a couple first-round picks, so we'll see where they can expand on it. And their team is still very young, but I think Columbus has got a super bright future, and a lot of these guys are going to be key factors in that future. Up to number 13, and this is the Pittsburgh Penguins. A shock to see them this high. This one is partially due to the fact that obviously I love the Penguins, but I'm much more familiar with these prospects. I've done a lot of work on these prospects specifically, which might make them rank higher than other people might have them if they haven't looked into them as much. But I think there's a lot of really promising things in this pool. I think it's the best goaltending tandem, maybe the second. Actually, I'll say the second best goaltending tandem in a prospect pool, only trailing the Detroit Red Wings, with Sergei Murashov and Joel Blomqvist. Murashov came over from the KHL this year and was outstanding. He started out his AHL career, I believe it was like 11-0, with ridiculous numbers, and was just phenomenal. Joel Blomqvist had some injuries this year and kind of bounced up and down. He wasn't quite as good at the NHL level as I had hoped, but that's also partially because the Penguins were probably the worst defensive team in hockey, or one of the worst defensive teams in hockey last year, so not an ideal situation for a young goalie to get thrown into. But at the AHL level, he's starting his head like normal, or like he had been doing these past few years. I hope to see him take the NHL jump in the next year or so. The problem is it's tough to find a good position for him if the defense doesn't improve, and I doubt it will considering the situation the Penguins are in. Then you have the top 2 skaters, Rutger McGroarty and Billy Koivunen, who both got some run at the end of the season in the NHL. Koivunen had 7 assists in 8 games. He was phenomenal. Rutger looked really good before he got injured playing next to Sidney Crosby. And I think those two playing with Sid next year is going to be so big for the development, and I think they're both going to be really solid top 6 forwards. Harrison Brunicky has had a really, really good developmental year. He got injured, but before getting injured was almost a lock, it seemed, to make the Team Canada World Junior team, and he even got named as a reserve for the World Championship team for Team Canada, which is a loaded roster. So even just getting that recognition is super, super impressive for Brunik. And I think he's got really good potential. He played some AHL games at the end of the year. Smooth skating, great puck mover, really good offensive mind, but also plays a good two-way game. Tanner Howe is a really solid, just gritty bottom six forward. I think he plays with such high energy and such physicality for a player of his size. It's super fun to watch. Doesn't have the most touch or most finish in among prospects, but the physicality and the effort level he plays with at every play is super, super impressive. Owen Pickering likely will get some run at the NHL level this year. He's a good two-way defenseman, a big defenseman too. Played in the NHL for a little bit, and he was pretty good, but it made more sense to send him down and let him develop in a better environment with Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Mikael Ilian recently signed his ELC just a couple days ago. This is one of my favorite prospects. I don't have him ranked as highly right now. We'll see how he develops this year in Wilkes-Barre. But I am a big fan of his game. An elite playmaker who's just a great passer, great vision, really good offensive mind. Not the best in his own end, and he's got some other flaws to his game, but he's got a decent shot and has had some of the most productive KHL U20 seasons of all time. I think he's top 10. He's got 2 slots in the top 10 for points among a U20 player in the KHL, only trailing Ivan Demidov and Nikita Artemonov this year in points among U20 players. A fifth overall pick who's lighting up the NHL, and a second round pick who's been really, really good. So I think Mikael Ilian deserves a little bit more love. And then Vasily Ponomarev, acquired as part of the Jake Gensel deal along with Billy Koivunen. He's been pretty good, projected like a 3 or 4 C good two-way game. And then Emil Pieniniemi had a really good junior tournament. I was one of my favorite players to watch there. He wasn't really on my radar as a Penguins prospect to watch, but he really showed out that tournament and was probably Finland's best defenseman on a team that had Aaron Kivijarhu. So he was really, really good and quarterbacked the power play well, and was also point per game this year in the OHL. And then some decent prospects here. Among the honorable mentions, Tristan Brose was a top NCAA guy before being a top player for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Melvin Fernstrom was the SHL Rookie of the Year this year. And then Avery Hayes and Sam Poulin and Finn Harding are some decent pieces who have played pretty well over the past year and a bit. But yeah, I know I'm sure this is going to be a controversial spot, but I like a lot of these prospects, and there's a ton of potential here. And I think the Penguins prospect pool is slept on because it's the Penguins. So you assume the prospect pool must stink because it has stunk for the past 10 years. But I think it's really solid, and adding 1, maybe 2 first-round picks, depending on the Rangers move, could be massive for this team. At number 12, we move on to the Buffalo Sabres, a pool that is still really good despite a lot of call-ups, a lot of losses in the pool over the last little bit. Obviously, they traded Matt Savoy last summer. Yuri Kulich, one of my favorite prospects heading into this year, graduated, had a great NHL run. But the top of this pool is still very, very good. Devin Levi is one of my favorite goalie prospects to watch. Just super calm, composed in the net, really good sound positioning, and doesn't leave a lot of rebounds out there. He hasn't found the success at the NHL level you would have hoped, but I think that's also partially due to the fact that Buffalo has just not been a good team in front of him, so it's really hard to justify the work he's getting. It's similar to Blomqvist, where I think there's tons of talent there, but the team in front of him isn't supporting him, so it's a tough spot for a rookie goaltender to gain confidence. But whenever he goes down to the AHL, he puts up numbers. He had a .927 in 26 games last year and .919 in 42 games this year. So the talent is obviously there. I think he's going to be an elite starter in this league. It'll just be it's more a matter of when and not if, in my opinion. Consta Helenius, one of their top pick, the 14th overall pick last year, he's a stud. He's a super great offensive mind, really physical, plays really hard, just super talented. He played at the juniors this year. He wasn't super noticeable, made some solid plays here and there. Next year at the junior tournament, unless he gets called up to the NHL level, he is going to be a monster for Finland and could be an early candidate for tournament MVP, in my opinion. 2 former first-round picks of the next spots, Isaac Rosen and Noah Ostlund, both of whom have gotten a little bit of NHL action here and there. They both look really solid, probably more middle six guys down the line, but they look really solid and have some good potential there to build on, and have had some really good AHL seasons as well. Maxim Sturbach and Brody Zemer. Brody Zemer was one of my top players for the junior team, the American junior team this past year. he was a big surprise to me. But he played super, super well. His speed was very, very noticeable on the ice. He was out-skating everyone. Just pure burners. And it was something I wasn't familiar with. But 7 points in 7 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, and was such a hard skater, such a good skater, and was able to use his speed to create separation and create plays in the offensive zone for the U.S. was really a key piece to their team. And Maxim Strbak was a key piece to the Czech team. Big, physical defenseman who was laying the body and made some good defensive plays. And then some decent goalies on here with Scott Ratzlaff and Topias Leinonen. Both of whom are solid. We'll see maybe backups down the line in the future of the NHL level, but some really good pieces in this pool. Buffalo can turn these pieces, can develop these pieces, or they can turn them into some win-now pieces to try and get them over the hump that they've been stuck on for, 14 years now. So it's interesting to see where Buffalo can go, because they still have the prospect pool to be able to almost tear down a little bit and retool again, but they also can turn that prospect pool into NHL-ready players and try and just accelerate this forward. We'll see what direction they choose this offseason and what is going to be a key offseason for Kevin Adams and his tenure in Buffalo. And then at number 11, we have the St. Louis Blues. A lot of really good prospects, a lot of big risers, a lot of guys who had really good seasons this year. Starting off the top, Dalibor Dvorsky. I've always been a big fan of Dvorsky's game, coming out, two-way player, really, really good two-way player, who was arguably one of, if not the best player at the World Juniors. The Slovakian team didn't give him a ton of support, really. There wasn't a ton of help offensively for him, but he put up numbers and was just an amazing player. And again, his two-way game really showed. I think if there's a prospect in the league that I could give a premature Selke vote to, that I could project as a future Selke winner, it would be Dalibor Dvorsky. I think that the stick, he's a great stick, a great mind, really stout, lots of great skills with his body, with his skating. I love Dalibor Dvorsky's game, and he has that offensive punch. 45 points in the AHL this year. He had 9 points in 5 games while captaining the U20 Slovakian team. He also played for them in the World Championships. Only managed 1 point, but I think down the line, this is a future perfect middle six shutdown center who will be a Selke candidate for years to come if he pans out as I expect him to. Jimmy Snuggerud, a real good scoring winger, was one of the top players in the NCAA, came over to St. Louis, played a little bit for them in the playoffs, wasn't anything too crazy, didn't make any, oh my god plays, but that's, he's not quite there yet, but I think there's some definitely positive potential there. Otto Stenberg, not the skilled forward his brother Ivar is, who's 2026 draft eligible, but is a similar to Dvorsky, really solid physical two-way defenseman or centerman, wins face-off, plays great in his own end, and can create some offense as well. The defense duo of Adam Juracek and Theo Lindstein, I think both are solid. Don't see any like Adam Juracek slipped a little bit more for me this year. Didn't have as impressive of a year as I was hoping. But him and Theo Lindstein, both going to be really, I think, solid middle pair defensemen in the future for St. Louis. And then Jakob Stansel was one of the best players in the junior tournament. Just an amazing scoring touch he showed, and some really good skills he showed off for that Czech team that was honestly a really good team. They upset Canada. They had a really good tournament. But Stansel was a massive part of that. 7 goals, not 7 points, 7 goals in 7 games for the Czechia team. That is obscene numbers, and he was really impressive. Juraj Pekačík, Adam Jecko, and Thomas Mercic all also had amazing tournaments, putting up some really good numbers for the respective teams. And some of these guys also played big roles for the junior clubs as well. Pekačík was one of the top players for the Moncton Wildcats on their run to the Memorial Cup. So really, really good stuff for this St. Louis pool. They've got a really good depth on the board, and I think Dalibor Dvorsky, in my opinion, is one of the elite prospects in the NHL, and I think one of the top tier guys in the league. On to number 10, and this is a team that you would not expect to be here. It's the Carolina Hurricanes. It's really a shockingly good prospect pool for how good of a team they are. Obviously, they made the conference final, but I don't think on paper that's a conference final level roster. But it's still they are still perennial playoff contenders who also happen to have a top 10 prospect pool in the NHL and 4 first-round picks for the next 3 years. the future is a lot brighter for the Canes than people would like to admit. I think they're going to make a big splash with these prospects and with their picks during this offseason to get them over that hump, to try and get them to the Stanley Cup final and try and really build up a good offensive roster. But the talent in this pool is amazing. Alexander Nikishin is one of the best prospects in hockey. Super big, strong, physical shutdown defenseman, who is just really good. He played with Dmitry Orlov, and he had his ups and downs in the playoffs. You could obviously see the growing pains, but you can see the strength he has and the skills he has in the defensive end. He was laying the body out and laying some massive hits in his own end, and made some solid defensive plays as well. It'll be interesting to see his development next year with a full-time role with Carolina and seeing who he matches up with, who he ends up being paired with. But I like the potential there. Bradley Nadeau was a top player for Team Canada at the juniors. Really good playmaker, but has a sneaky good shot as well and lines up pretty well from the dot on the power play and has some really good finishing touches there. So I like Nadeau's game a lot. Nikita Armanov, I mentioned him earlier. He's a top prospect here. Had a great KHL season this past year. And his draft year, I was surprised he slipped to the second round, but the Canes scooped him up, and they couldn't be happier, I would imagine. Scott Morrow also got some playing time for the Canes this year. He bounced up and down between the AHL and NHL, ended up playing the majority of the playoffs on the team because they dealt with injuries to Sean Walker and Jalen Chatfield. Scott Morrow was okay. I honestly wasn't as impressive in the playoffs. He had some blunders and wasn't quite all there defensively at times, but I think there is still potential for a third pair defenseman here, and he's already proven he can last. He can hold his own. He just needs to round out some of the mental areas of his game that seem to lapse at times during the playoffs. Dominic Badinka had a good season as a defenseman, and then Felix Unger-Sorum might actually be. I mentioned Brody Zemer as the fastest player at the juniors. If there's a guy that might be able to challenge that, it was Felix Unger-Sorum, who was just super smooth skating, blazing speed, and he's not as balanced of a forward in terms of production as a guy like Brody Zemer. He was a real natural playmaker. Used his speed to open up the ice for the rest of his team, find good passing lanes, and create scoring chances that way. He had 7 games, 1 goal, 9 assists during the junior tournament. He had 15 assists in 61 games over in the AHL, so it wasn't the most productive AHL season, but what I saw from him at the junior tournament, I think he can really translate that to the next level. He needs to develop the rest of his game, get a little more well-rounded, maybe bulk up a little bit, add some more size to his frame, but he's got really elite skating and edge work and speed. So if he can use that properly and then, do what he did in the junior tournament, which is, create the space, then find the open lanes, find the trailer, find the guy sitting backdoor and create scoring chances that way, he's got a lot of potential down the line. And this pool is still top 10 despite losing a player like Jackson Blake, who was arguably a Calder candidate and is a really talented forward for the Carolina Hurricanes. But there's some promising pieces in this pool for sure. And then finally, move on to number 9 into the top 10, solidified into the top 10 now here with the Utah Mammoth, the new Utah, I almost said hockey club there. New team, new logo, love the logo. I think it's a really solid design there. I was more in favor of the Utah Yeti, but the Mammoth is solid and I like what they've done with the logo. And this prospect pool is really good. I mean, I feel like ever since the transition to Utah, people have forgotten how promising this young team and young prospect pool is. Everyone looked at them with so much praise when they were in Arizona because Arizona had been dumping players for years and years and just stockpiling picks. Well, now these picks have names. These picks have real developmental paths and are real prospects, and they look really promising. And I think the future is so bright for Utah. I think they should, if they acquire a young NHL-ready player, forward or defenseman, to help get them over the hump and get them into the playoff race, solidified into the playoff race in the West, there's a lot of potential here for this young team, and this prospect pool is loaded. Tiji Ginla dealt with injuries this year, missed out on the junior tournament, which is super unfortunate. He should be back next year and should be ready to light up that tournament, but he's super talented regardless of the injury. They, almost out of the blue it seemed, they signed their 2 Russian prospects to ELCs, Dmitry Simishev and Daniil But, both of whom are going to be studs. I don't know if they jump right into the NHL lineup, especially Simishev, because they have a lot of different options with their decor, a lot of names in there. It's a pretty loaded decor. There's a lot of different pieces that'll be sorted out this offseason, but Simishev if you want a shutdown defenseman, he's probably the textbook definition of shutdown defenseman. Big, physical, really smooth skating, plays really well in his own end, and was one of the best shutdown defensemen in the KHL as a 20-year-old. So there's a lot to like there. And then Daniil But was taken as a bit of a project, maybe a bit of a reach at 12th overall when he was drafted, but similar to Dmitry Simashev, a big Russian forward. You know, he's a forward on the defenseman, but he's got that big size, but has hands that you would not believe for a player of his size. And I think that's going to be a really good mesh. I think if Daniil But pans out, he's going to be the perfect winger to fit next to the likes of Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, Dylan Gunther, these smaller, more skilled guys. You give him a Daniil But who can get in the corners, out-muscle a guy to the puck, take the puck, and then dangle through two guys and find an open passing lane. That's going to be an elite piece for those guys to work with in that top six. So really promising stuff from him. Michael Hrabal, I've liked a lot. I think he's been pretty up and down over these past few years, but I really think he's got a ton of potential. And I think they keep signing their goalies to extensions, and obviously goalies take a lot longer to develop, and he's still only 20. But I think he's going to end up being their long-term starter of the future. He's one of my favorite goalie prospects. Up and down, but more up than down recently. I mean, he was really fantastic for Czechia at the junior tournament, really showcased the skills he has beyond being a 6'7" goaltender. He's super big, so covers a lot of the net, but plays a really sound, stout positioning game. Really crisp with his movements, no wasted energy, no wasted movements. Doesn't overexert himself, and is able to make saves that other goalies can't because of his size. And also, again, great flexibility for his size. So he's able to get across post to post with ease, and super talented stuff. 2 good NCAA seasons for UMass, 924 Sabres this year, 912 last year. He didn't have the best junior tournament last year, but he was playing as an 18-year-old. He was 19 this time around and really showcased some really talented skills. It was one of the reasons both years, in fact, that Czechia ended up going on decent runs all the way to the top. And then Maverick Lamoureux, another player, is going to be competing with Simashev for that last spot in that Utah D-core. He got some run this year because Utah dealt with a ton of injuries in the back end, which makes you forget how many players are there. But like Sean Dursey missed serious time, Marino missed serious time. I think Sergachev was injured for a little bit too. There's a lot of guys. I mean, they still have Olimata, Michael Kesselring, and Ian Cole. That's their 6. And then you have these 2 young players who you'd like to see get some NHL run because I think they're NHL caliber. But Lamoureux, Utah has a bit of a type with these prospects recently after getting a ton of skill guys who are in their lineup now. Big, physical defenseman, Maverick Lamoureux. I think he's got some good potential there to be a good piece for Utah. Doesn't have the upside as Dmitry Simashev, but being that he's already played at the NHL, he might be more ready. But then again, the KHL is a very good league, so it's going to be a very interesting battle in camp for Utah this offseason to see which one of those 2 can kind of work their way into the lineup, if either of them can. But they're both really promising prospects. Cole Baudouin could be a good bottom 6 or their second first round pick from last year's draft. I think a good bottom 6, 2-way forward center. Played a good hard game at the junior tournament, and did some good stuff in the defensive end. Again, nothing crazy in the offensive end, but he has that really good 2-way nature. Your prototypical third line center who can play at both ends of the ice. And then Will Skahan, Artem Duda, both some pretty solid pieces. They even have Melker Thielen deeper down in this pool in the honorable mentions as one of the goalies. He was the Swedish goalie, the Swedish starter this year for the junior team. Didn't quite have a good season though, Melker Thielen. It wasn't really his most promising year, but there is still some talent there and some potential to tap into down the line. That'll do it for this episode. That'll do it for the third part, the penultimate part of this ranking, going through teams 16 through 9. Like I said, there's a lot of interchangeability between these teams. I think you could very easily compare, maybe not Utah, maybe Utah might be the 1 tier above, they might be more in that top tier, but you can compare Carolina or St. Louis to Nashville or Anaheim, and you really wouldn't be crazy. It would be very, very realistic to me if you wanted to flip those teams, because these pools are all so similar. They have a top-end guy or really good depth, and they're deep into the honorable mentions. They have more than just 7 guys. They got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys, and they're all top 100 level prospects. So there's a ton of really good pools in here, and I think a lot of these teams also have top end picks. So you add these top end picks in here, depending on where they go, lot of shakeup could happen in this range in the next 3 months with the draft coming up. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, but some really good pools here. And then next episode, we'll get into the top 8, the really good pools, the pools that have elite depth, multiple top-end talent guys. This is going to be some great teams, some great prospect pools. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you are too. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave all your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.